This is a special call meeting, isn't it? Special call meeting of the Danville Architectural Heritage Board. It is October 18, 2024, just a few minutes past 1:30. Our secretary is missing. I would like to, with the approval of the board, ask Mr. Gary Noble if he will temp in as secretary.
It would be my pleasure.
Any objection from the board?
Absolutely not.
Very good. Very good. Got that covered. It says approval of the minutes. Do we have a copy of the minutes?
Ms. Dana was going to bring them, and she has fouled out the last moment, so
We will table that to the next meeting. Third item, and is with just overwhelming joy that I want to welcome Mr. Ennis Tillman to this board. Brings a great background of engineering, community service, community involvement, and is going to be a huge plus to the board. Would you like me to continue to build that up, or are you okay there? We're good? All right. Would you like to say anything?
Yes, I would. Thank you for the opportunity, and all that I got.
I've worked with Mr. Tillman on several other endeavors, and he's not joking. When he puts his shoulder to it, you get 110%.
fantastic.
So, very good.
Has anyone, we may, to speak, when you want to speak, if you have to say something, just poke that button right there, and it'll turn green, and we can hear you.
Yes, ma'am.
Fantastic.
Very good. It's somewhat at the chair's discretion to name order. I'm going to switch our hearings around a little bit because there's a couple that are probably going to proceed somewhat rapidly, I anticipate, and some that may drag on. So first to order, I would like to ask the parties from 305 North 3rd Street, if you will step up, make sure your microphone's on, introduce yourself, and let us know what you'd like to do.
Is it on?
It is.
Okay, very good. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lynn Snuvrank. I'm the property owner at 305 North 3rd Street. And we're here today to get approval for two items. The first one is repair and the tuck pointing on the dining room chimney, which is the southwest chimney along Lexington Avenue, as well as the foundation, as we have some uninvited guests coming in the basement at this time. So the gentleman that's going to be doing the work on that has worked in the house previously for the previous owner, so he's very familiar with it. At the top of the application, I did put his mortar recipe, so you all understand what type of mortar he is going to be using, which is the lime-based mortar. And then once the tuck pointing is done on the southwest chimney, we are going to be having the copper chimney cap installed, which will match the other three chimney caps that are already installed on the house that were approved last year.
All right.
So you can hear me?
Comments from the staff?
You can see that the findings of facts, there is no alteration to the original chimney design. We've already approved the other chimney caps, which are appropriate. Copper is very durable material. The tuck pointing is an appropriate mixture, and the gentleman that she's got to work on the house has actually worked in Liberty Hall in Frankfurt, which requires a great deal of knowledge and approval from the Kentucky Heritage Council, so I have absolutely no problem with any of that. So I would recommend that it be approved without any issues.
Mr. Chair, I move for its approval.
I have a motion to approve. Any further discussion?
I'll second it.
I have a second.
To the movement and to the second, do you adopt the findings and staff recommendations set out in the report?
Yes,
Thank you.
you have to say that.
We have to say that.
I just said it. You said it for me.
You did a good job.
I have a motion. I have a second to approve staff
Thank you.
recommendations as stated. Without further discussion, all in favor? Say
Aye.
aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed? The board wishes to thank you for all the work that
Thank
you're
you.
doing to preserve
Thank you. Have a good
that-
afternoon, everyone.
that masterpiece. Thank you. Number two, 120 Church Street, requesting replacement of a deteriorated porch. who's here representing? Very good. You'll step up and introduce yourself and
Yes. Good afternoon. I'm Jeremy Gillum. I'm a contractor that's been hired by the Metcalf family to repair the property at 120 Church Street here in Danville. The property has been vacant for about 2 years. We were initially brought on to do interior remodeling to the property. Upon inspection of the second-story porch, which is currently wrought iron columns and about a 6-inch slab, there was a lot of concerns. We brought in a structural engineer. We'd originally hoped to possibly be able to rehab that porch. The engineer's report that I submitted in Ms. Joni House basically stated there's no way to determine if proper rebar was used in the slab, and further that it was probably never a good idea to use the wrought iron columns that were there. So if the board would approve, we would like to remove the existing wrought iron columns, the second-story slab, and the stair going up, and replace, obviously according to state building code, with a treated lumber deck, with treated spindles, and paint, I think as the rendering is, an off-white color.
would you care to comment?
Yes, I would. To begin with, this is one of those non-contributing structures that we really wanted to pull out over there some time ago. The engineering report's very clear. The porch is unstable and needs to be replaced. Treated wood is quite an appropriate treatment for that building. It's very durable. There will be no altering of scale or mass or anything that should interfere with the structure and the way it presents itself on the street. So I would approve the project as proposed on the application.
We have staff report. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
So moved to approve as staff has
Yes,
stated.
that's according to staff recommendation.
Very good. Thank
Fantastic.
you,
I'm
sir.
not used to all that other
I
garbage.
saw him reaching for the button, and I'm like, nope, I'm gonna cut him off.
There we go.
I'm on
Any
now.
further discussion? My only comment, every time I go through Community Trust Bank, I keep waiting for that porch to fall off. I'm sitting there at the drive-through going, when they gonna fix that? When they
Right.
gonna, so thank you.
Well, thank you. It's an
All right,
honor.
so we have a motion, discussion, without any, do I have a second? We'll let Mr. Tillman do his first.
I second the motion.
Very good. Without further discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed? Thank you, sir,
Thank you, board.
for
Thank
good
you.
work. Yes, sir.
I'll email you that COA app. Probably tomorrow. Thank you.
Third on the agenda of hearings is 303 South Second Street, Ephraim McDowell, the parking lot. You'll step up and identify yourself, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Craig Sutton, Systems Director of Facilities for Ephraim McDowell Health.
Excuse me, can you speak up a little bit, please, sir? Thank you.
I'm Craig Sutton, Systems Director of Facilities for Ephraim McDowell Health. What we presented to the board with the applications and drawings is for a parking area at 303 South Second Street. I want to make sure I said that address correct. And the intended use will be for a parking structure for that, for Ephraim McDowell Health. We do have an architectural plan in the drawings that shows appropriate shrubs, trees, decorative fencing around the area, things of that nature. The context of that is it will be a tool we use. Ephraim McDowell Health has a major expansion plan. We actually have a groundbreaking ceremony next Tuesday to reveal some of that to the community. This will enable the major expansions at the hospital. At that time, the back parking lot will be closed. So this parking lot will provide adequate parking for visitors, patients, and associates as needed, but that would be a third option as far as that for the community and the hospital. We are underway with that construction. I'll take responsibility with that right out of the gate. We have been working with the city planners for over a year on this project. I do not know, but I will take responsibility, right, how we missed that we had to have a COA as part of the process, right? But we have been actively working with Mr. Coffey, Mr. Morgan with City of Plan, and Michaela, and I do apologize to this board for the confusion of that aspect. I also have offering to the committee, and he may assist me with questions, if so moved, with Kevin with Messer Construction. He's our general contractor on the site, and obviously willing to answer and address any questions or give any context as you all see fit.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Sutton. Ms. House, any comments from staff at this point?
Well, I will say, it concerns me a little bit that you guys are having a major groundbreaking for these plans without any input from this board, because the hospital is within the H1 overlay. So before anything is done, these plans have to come. If there are exterior changes to any part of that facility, they have to come before this board before anything can happen. I met with folks maybe 6 months ago, and I thought I was very clear about that, but let me reiterate that to you now, that we have to have approval before anything can begin. And I apologize if the city has not communicated that well. I talked to Michaela about it. She indicated there was some confusion there, but I want to make sure that we're clear about that now.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
You are going to put that parking lot next to one of the most historic structures within the city, Jacobs Hall. As I review the plans, I find that they are within our design guidelines as far as the screening that will be placed in there. And I would, there is a large retention pond that will help minimize the runoff, because I have to say I'm concerned about the runoff onto that property as well. But according to your plans, you do have a substantial runoff pond, which I think will help with that. When you look at those old stone foundations on those buildings, they can't take a whole lot of water influx into there. So anytime that could be a possibility, I always look pretty heavy at that. So I'm pretty confident that runoff will be contained. I did look at the fencing that you proposed. It is an aluminum fencing with powder coated. I think that's quite durable and very appropriate. And I would recommend that this be approved as long as those plantings are installed per your proposal. And again, please, please, please make sure that any exterior changes for that facility goes in front of this board
Yes,
before
absolutely.
anything happens.
Yes, and that was our intention. I think we just got final drawings released, so I do plan to get that submitted to this committee
Fantastic.
very soon, right? But I did not want to submit something that had yet to been finalized, because obviously we had a lot of board approvals within the hospital.
Sure.
And we just got their approval to move forward with that actually this past month.
Fantastic. And I am available to help you at any point. Just give me a call or a quick email, and I'll run down and we'll powwow about what you need.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Appreciate you being here. Sometimes it's not an enviable job, and we may poke you a little bit. There has been some history, because through the years, you've been on the board, I guess, the longest with me, right? We're the most tenured,
I think you're older than I.
just a little bit more older than John. But there's kind of been a history of your organization showing up and saying, oh, we need forgiveness rather than permission, or coming in with a plan and saying, oh, we're going to, build an entrance here and build a heliport and do this, and we need to tear down this historic building.
Yes.
And then tear the building down and build a parking lot.
Yep.
And then ask, oh, sorry, we changed our mind.
Yep.
So we're a little touchy.
Okay,
So,
and I appreciate that perspective as well.
and poor Clayton Denny, I love Clayton Denny, but it got to the point Clayton would kind of throw his hat in the door before he came into meetings, okay? So it was a little testy.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my comments. Is there anyone else?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to add, from my reading of the ordinances as we've set them up, we can ask for fines when there are violations here. I think Ms. House is not asking for that at this time.
No, I'm not
I'm
at
just
this time.
putting that to the board's attention for any future issues. So.
Thank you, sir.
And let me just say, you guys are precariously located, as all hospitals are in historic downtowns, but you have the McClure Barbie House that sits on your boundaries, that's exceedingly important to this community, as well as Jacobs Hall. And there may be other folks here that want to address that. So I would just be overly cautious when we are dealing with those properties.
I appreciate it.
I'd like to, on a positive note, you have done some grading out there. I went out and kicked the dirt. And the plans were challenging to read. So I went out there and I could get the lay of the land. And I want to thank you. It's obvious that you worked at preserving the existing trees, which I think is a good thing. I'm assuming that you're replacing the chain link fence with the wrought
Yes.
iron, is that?
Yep, it'll be removed, it'll be further up on the hill, and the chain link is kind of halfway down the bank.
Yeah.
So we're going to be removing that, and the decorative fencing would be farther up on the plateau there.
Okay.
The goal of that fencing, not only aesthetically to make it look nice, which the hospital wants to do as well, it also limits traffic of people that would be parking, trying to shortcut off that parking lot. It's an obvious barrier that you need to go to the intersection and cross safely, rather than, I'm in a hurry, there's nothing
Oh, that
stopping me to
never
run over this
happens.
bank.
No, no.
And with that, I should have mentioned this before, I did ask Kevin with Messer, that gave me a little more detail, if you all would like to be presented that now. I just ran off 5 copies, I didn't know how many board was here. It basically gets just a little bit more detail of the fencing look, the type of tree and bush spec. So I can present that if you need to, or I could give it with Joni.
Absolutely, you're welcome to give it to the board and let them look at it.
Great.
I think I did print off for you all a copy that I found on the internet of the fence.
Did. We'd be happy to share with Gary.
Yeah, that's fine.
We play well together.
Thank you, sir.
I'm usually done.
Thank you, sir.
I'm not an expert.
I appreciate that.
The pond.
Retention, yeah. Okay, I understand that.
Without reading the specs, Kevin, is it, you don't have to get up, is it a solid surface parking lot, or is it the paver type, or?
Solid asphalt.
Solid surface asphalt, okay. That explains the retention pond, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a water quality unit, all that involved with the runoff.
Okay.
Are you going to be doing anything relative to the perimeter sidewalks, curb gutter sidewalks?
At the 2 entrances, you can see on Martin Luther and on Second Street there, we will be putting ADA ramps and crosswalks across the entrances there.
At the intersection as well? At the intersection as well?
Not at the intersection, this is at the entrances.
Can you address the microphone, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I should have done that, my apologies.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So there is, at the 2 entrances, there are existing entrances, we're rehabbing those with new asphalt, new ADA ramps on the existing sidewalks, and a crosswalk across the entrances, but nothing at the intersection of 3rd Street and Martin Luther.
How about Second and Martin Luther?
Nothing's planned currently right there either.
It's second in Martin, sorry. Sharing the mic. It's second, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, second in Martin Luther is largely the trees will be existing there, and it'll be green space where the old sign is, and now it says Ephraim McDowell Health. It used to say, I guess, KSD or something.
I'm just talking about the corner ramps at the sidewalk. They're in pretty, well, they're impassable.
You're talking about the intersection of 3rd Street and Martin Luther there?
No, I'm on Second.
Second Street, okay. No, nothing's planned there, we can certainly take a look at it and evaluate those, absolutely, yes.
It may be beyond our scope.
is that
Okay,
city or
I
their-
saw that coming.
Okay.
Yes, that would be more in the purview of the city engineer for that. We kind of stop at the sidewalk.
Mr. Bowles?
I've got a couple of issues I'd like to address. And since we're talking about parking, the first issue would be the parking that's on the east side of the entrance to the hospital. There's a pull-off there where 3 or 4 or 5 cars can park, and it's extremely narrow. And a lot of people that park there, they don't pull all the way in, and their tail end sits out in 3rd Street. And a lot of us, including me, have to stop because we can't get over because of the oncoming traffic. You follow me? Is there any plans to do anything to negate that problem there? Have you talked to the city, or what do you plan to do about that?
Yes, we have talked to the city, been discussions with that, and with our future expansion plans, it's still actively discussed how do we improve that. As far as either making it more accessible for people and safe, obviously, for cars.
So all you've done is talk about it?
At this point, that's all we.
Any commitments to do anything about it?
We've had several ideas, but we haven't committed to that other than if it becomes an
Are
alternate
are you
entrance.
all in the city committed to rectifying that problem?
Yes, I am on it.
Do you have a timetable on that?
Not currently.
So the city's aware of that?
Yes, I've been working with.
So theoretically, you could take part of the sidewalk out, that would be plenty of room to park there, or you could do away with it all.
That is a potential, absolutely.
Okay.
Depends on a lot
So-
of other circumstances such as underground utilities and things of that.
So would it be fair to say to you that you would commit to this committee here that you all will rectify that problem?
I can say we'll continue the study.
Does that,
We'll
does
do
that mean
everything we
yes?
can. Well, I'm only representative of Beaver
I
McDowell Health, and
understand,
that's
I
the one I'm here
understand,
today.
I understand. I'm just trying to back you in the corner is all I'm trying to do. So, well, good. I'm glad you all are addressing that problem. So I've spoken personally to the city manager about that, and he said they were going to address it, but I won't go into how long that. The other issue I've got, who's in charge of the landscape? Are you in charge of the landscape, sir?
As drawn, yes.
New parking lot, yes, sir.
You've done a wonderful job with it. Mr. Chairman, I don't see any color at all in the planning plans. Are you all considering, or would you consider multiple flower beds to concur with the rest of the downtown area to beautify that? Could you put that in your plans?
Yes, I think that's
So
easily accommodated.
you all would commit to multiple flower and work with the beautification committee to do that?
Yes, I would be open to that.
Wonderful. Then, and I'm going to vote for you today. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Now, not to throw a monkey wrench into that, but that would be a change of design. So if that happens to come up, I'm afraid you'd have to come back in front of us for a change of
I don't
design.
mind doing that.
What we're looking at today is the design that you have presented. And so I would recommend approval with that, with the conditions that this design is implemented as per, because the screening is appropriate. And I think one of the biggest concerns I've heard from some of the community members who have contacted me of late is that they're worried about the way that's going to look next to Jacobs Hall. But I think there is appropriate tree screen here that would help that blend in as best possible.
Since you've mentioned, is there any other comment from the public here? Mary Jo? Step up, please. Since you're the only public still here.
I am, I don't want to walk all the way up there. I'm one of the ones that parks at the hospital for the pharmacy.
I'm sorry, Mary Jo, I can't hear you. Huh?
I'm one of the ones that park at the hospital because of the pharmacy. The pull off there, which is very difficult to do. I've wondered if you might consider moving the pharmacy. You have so many people stopping in there, and it's very hard to get out. But I have two concerns. One is, what is the plan? I understand you all have bought back McClure Barbie. What is the plan for that house?
Yes, I was under the understanding that the hospital owned McClure Barbie now. You do not, okay.
We had talked to the owners, but
Okay,
not come to the
okay.
Because it has a preservation easement that goes with it, so you can't touch it, basically. So good. Yeah, I was wondering about that because I knew Jessica Rell owned it. Okay.
Well, and I guess at the last meeting, you guys were
Talks.
perhaps you were in negotiations for the McClure Barbie, so, okay, fantastic, thank you.
Good question.
Yeah, well, I sold it to him. I sold it when it sold, yeah. Okay. my other two questions is the asphalt. What did the library do? Didn't they do pavers that water could go through? I mean, I know it's more expensive to do a parking lot like that, but just asphalt where it runs into a pond. I think that's why the library did pavers, because the water could go down through there.
Yeah, we did,
I mean, when that was.
some years ago, when they did the expansion
Yeah.
in '07, they did, permeable pavement. The whole parking lot is not that. The expansion where the old Baptist church was.
Yeah, it is.
Got that treatment.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't tell you much about it. You need to ask,
Well, I know that's better for the environment to do that instead of having that runoff, but I'm sure that's expensive. I don't know if you can, you've considered something that looks a little better. And then, what is your long-term plan? I'm sure it's not to be a parking lot. Have you had any, since it is in the historic district, do you have any input from people in preservation? I mean, this group, I know, what you're doing.
Speak to that. That's all right. So our long-term plans will be, our major expansion project that we have proposed will probably take, I think the timeline now is about 30 to 34 months. So it's more than 2 years. So, and as far as definites, I cannot speak to that. I can speak to discussion with Ephraim McDowell Health is, part of this expansion is expanded property, and once that is proposed before the committee, you'll have opportunity to look at that. But future dates, it may be another clinic or a building site. It is not in our 10-year plan, although I talked about 3. It's not in our plan to be a parking lot inevitably, but at this time, I cannot commit to what it will be, 5 years from now. But that is our internal discussion as far as that goes.
So it fits in with Jacob's Hall is the most important thing, I think, anyway. That's all I have. We all drive by it every day, so we've been wondering what's going on there.
Okay, yes.
I don't see anything in the paper, ever. Am I missing it?
no,
Don't know, yes, we have, I'll just talk candidly, right? We're aware of that with Ephraim McDowell Health as well, that we needed to be better partners in the community and get some of this information out, I think, better than it's been handled in the past. I'm speaking a little out of term because I've only been with Ephraim
There
McDowell Health.
was a
for
news
2
announcement
months.
this morning on the radio, so I will.
Okay,
it's
was it?
starting
Good.
to trickle out there.
Yes, okay, yeah. That's our plan. And once again, for clarity, we were aware of the McDure Barbie and that we cannot touch any part of that property as far as that, whether we owned it or not. So that was in discussions and has been even through the negotiations, for clarity on as regards to McClure Barbie specifically. I had heard that, yes, absolutely. And I'd also heard, but I didn't hear until this past week, that there had been previous friction between Ephraim McDowell, Clayton, Denny, whoever, just speaking
Well, it
candidly.
actually wasn't Clayton. Clayton was
okay.
just the messenger,
Okay.
but he got sacrificed by.
He's the little guy standing
So I
here.
would warn you,
so.
if your superiors, and I hate to use the word,
Yes,
but your
yes.
executives, they send you back here without proper, we'll send you back for them.
Okay.
Okay, let them know.
I understand that's
They are
part of the
not
role.
immune.
Yes.
You will not be
Yes.
the poor sacrifice messenger.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you being candid about it. I just wanted to clarify, because of the delay of us getting this application in, that there was no ulterior motive, or they were up to their old tricks again. I just want to say that to the
Sure.
board, and I'm just a straight shooter if you all get to know me.
Like
So,
that. Thank you.
And I would add, because you guys are located in such a historic area, you might relay that information out to the community, specifically speaking about your concerns about historic preservation and what you intend to do or not do would probably go a long way in alleviating a lot of these fears.
Okay, I
I have
appreciate
gotten numerous phone calls and texts in the last 2 weeks of, you're not touching Jacob's Hall. So just, I would relay that to them. Information would help kind of quell some of the
Speculation.
miscommunication. Misinformation is the hot word that we have today, but that would help. And nodding towards understanding that you're in such a historic area would probably be beneficial as
I
well.
appreciate that. Thanks.
Oh, so now
you
we're
have a
in.
rec-
I do have a recommendation, if I can shuffle through all my paperwork here.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, sir, Lynn.
This is a process question, the discussion between Mr. Sutton and Joni. You were saying you're sending some information over to them to clarify. I didn't quite understand that communication, or did I get that wrong? There's some more exchange going on?
Well, with their proposed expansion, they need to provide us information so that I can make a staff report and give it to you. So it's not really me, Lynn, sending information to them, it's them sending information to me.
But that proposed expansion is not part of this particular.
No, sir,
project.
what we are
Got it.
only looking at right now is the parking area there on Second Street.
That's what I didn't
Yes.
understand. Got it,
Yeah,
thanks.
okay.
Yeah, I didn't mean
will
to-
say, I'm sorry, I will say that I will have a staff report like this for each piece, so, and you guys will get that well in advance.
My confusion.
And I apologize if I added confusion. I just thought it was pertinent to the context of why we were putting the parking lot for what we're discussing today.
No apology necessary. It was my confusion.
Yes, ma'am, back to you.
I've turned this thing on and off a lot. So the findings of facts is, this is a large parking area. It does occupy a large area between Martin Luther King and Second Street. There is a large retention pond planned that will minimize the water runoff on the adjacent surfaces. It is a large expanse of parking, however, they have, it does contain adequate screening per our guidelines. So I would recommend approval for this with conditions that the planning proposed and the plans must be implemented, and the heavy screening that's proposed must be implemented on the corners of Martin Luther King and South Second Street.
Haven't heard staff report. Do I hear a motion?
I got a question on the staff's report. Am I in order to ask that? So
Yes, sir.
I want to go back to the flowers. Can we talk about those for a second, which I'm passionate about, by the way. You've got here the proposed tree plantings within the parking area must be installed per plans. Do you all have any problems of adding flowers along with the trees?
I do not. It all just depends on volume, and then I default to our expert, our landscaper, horticulturalist. I was trying to split
That wouldn't disturb you if I asked the staff and the committee members up here to add flowers in along with trees?
Well, my only reservation is in making sure those keep adequately watered, because there's not a sprinkler automatic system in that plan.
Usually the city takes care of that in the summertime.
Okay. Would the city in turn take care of this on private property with Ephraim McDowell?
We'll get way out in the weeds, John.
Yes,
I
we
love your
are.
flowers too, but
Well, do you see a problem adding flowers there?
John, I can only really address what is in front of me.
Can we just maybe recommend flowers? You know, I trust you that you all are going to go along with this because you're very, yeah. Okay, I know what I'm going to do. That's fine.
And I would just say that the only thing that we can really look at today is the plan that's been put in front of us. And given that there is no sprinkler system or irrigation system, and that's a question I don't really know about private property with the city's responsibilities. So the only thing I really want you all to be able to approve or disapprove today is the plan that's in front of you. Now, if you guys want to put flowers in, come back to us. That would not be a big deal just to add that in, but as of today, we're only going to look at the plan that's in front of us.
Okay.
Sorry,
staff
John.
recommendation, do I have a motion?
Yes, I'll make the motion that we approve their plan, but I like to explain my vote.
Yes, sir.
Well, we got to vote on it first before we,
Oh, you want to explain your vote? So
After
you
I've-
make the motion to approve the
Yes,
proposal as you
yes.
stated.
Yes.
All right?
All right, I'll second that,
We have a
but I'm
second.
anxious to hear what he's got to say.
So this is where Robert's Rules of Order fault me. When do we?
Well, all you got to do is
explain
ask
or-
for the vote, and as each one of us go around, and anybody can explain why they're voting up or down.
Thank you, sir.
So I'm assuming you would have a roll call vote.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Mr. Tillman? An aye vote. Lynn?
Approve.
Approved. Gary?
Approved, but I'd like you to take a look at the corner.
Okay.
Approve here.
I approve, but just keep in mind, this structure is one of the first structures in the state added to the National Register in '66, which is years prior to many other structures throughout Kentucky for its significance. It's also a National Historic Landmark, and so that's another layer to the distinctions. And so whatever is done, the structure for Jacobs Hall, should take priority of, how do we make sure that we are not obstructing that, taking away from that, through lighting, like landscaping or anything. The significance of the building itself goes beyond Danville. It's the oldest public school for the deaf in the country. The building is a very unique structure for Kentucky, like the architectural heritage. The architects from Lexington, Thomas Lewinsky and John McMurtry. And so to be such a large structure from the mid-19th century surviving is quite rare. And that whole site, up until the 1980s, had more structures on it. And so this is the last surviving piece of the first campus for the school. And there's a community who cares for that building beyond Danville, through the deaf community throughout the country. And they consider that home, like the mother church for their education throughout the United States. And so, when developing these plans and things, you all care, for sure. Like, the plan is very nice, it's clean, and very complimentary. But, folks want to know what is happening to the building. And we've lost a lot locally over time. That campus is, the historic structures on that campus are largely all gone, except for Jacobs Hall. And so there is that concern, folks kind of jump to the worst possible thing could happen to the building. Now, you want to own that, of course, but, to obscure it or something. And so I just would like to, see in the future, just some more communication of the plans that are happening there on that very historic site. And the only other thing that I would say is that the plans are nice. I like them. I think it'll be good. So I vote yes.
Mr. Mayor?
I am wholeheartedly and enthusiastically support your all's plan. I think it's wonderful what you've done. However, having said that, I would like to add my comment that you all will look into the parking issue on 3rd Street with the city, and that you all will give support to the Danville Beautification Committee to add color where there's a lot of green. And I trust you and believe you all that you'll make it happen. And my vote's yes. So,
I believe we have, even with roll call, unanimous vote. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate your all's
Admire
time
your
this
bravery
afternoon.
to show up before us here. even though you had to bring reinforcements.
Well,
So-
I didn't know, like I say, how much detail we needed, but
Future visits, I can tell, will be much more pleasant.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
You can let just let Joni know what color flowers you're going to put up there.
I'm partial to pink, I like pink. And gentlemen, just for the future too, as you're talking with your architects, all of our design guidelines are online. So it might
Nice job.
do them as you're
I agree.
preparing these proposals to kind of look at those design guidelines, and that way you can address specific issues. Because what we judge against are those very specific design guidelines.
Yes.
And that is what my staff recommendations are based on, are those guidelines.
Yes, and we were aware of that, and I appreciate that, and we did challenge the architects to make sure it was compliant
Fantastic.
within those guidelines as we understand it.
Fantastic.
But
And it-
obviously, there may be interpretations, and if we have questions, we'll work through
Yeah,
that.
you know how to get a hold of me, fellas. I'll be right there. Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate your all's time today. Anybody want this last copy? And just for the record, that is as drawn, it's just added
Oh, yeah, yeah, it's all yours.
the visual effect.
Thank you. Now my papers are a mess.
Okay, ladies and
I
gentlemen.
liked it for the
Item
Power
number
Rangers and the
5.
color.
There's
Uh,
that.
We've been somewhat in a little bit of a cluster the last little bit, mainly, I think, coming out of the pandemic with our odd meetings, no meetings, rescheduled meetings. I think there's a desire to get back at least to a regular scheduled meeting, even though that might be canceled, to at least get something on the books would be my desire. Because I have a problem, if it's not immediate, I'm scheduling something, and then suddenly someone's calling saying, hey, can we meet next week? It's like, "Oh, sorry." Maybe the problem with some of you other gentlemen also. So Joni, would you like to comment on that?
Well, our regular meeting time is scheduled the third Wednesday of each month at 9:30 in the morning. That's kind of been our default. Now, I have had some requests and recommendations from the different commissioners here that we move the time of the meeting, not necessarily the date, but the time. And so I am open to that. You know, the third Wednesday of each month is a fine date to do this, but if there's an issue of the timing, we can certainly look at doing it in the afternoon. I will leave that to your discretion, but that has been something that's been brought up.
What's the issue with the time now?
At 1:30, I have no issue. It's the 9,
What's the issue with 9 o'clock? We have a lot of people oppose that?
there's a few, yes. They would like to do it a little later in the afternoon. So I would leave it to you to, we don't have anything as far as in our rules and procedures. It only requires that we have a regular called meeting. So,
The people that disagree with the time, did they give you a preferred time?
no. But I think in the afternoon is more preferable than in the morning.
So they can sleep later.
I suspect so, yes, sir. Or are better prepared for the meeting.
I think we ought to meet at 12 o'clock at lunch, man, everybody.
That way we could eat too, John. That would be great. I am open to the 1:30 if it works for everyone at that point.
Don't make any difference to me.
I would defer to the convenience of other people on the board. I have no social life, so if you give me a 10-minute phone call, I can be here.
Mr. Chair, if I'm in order, I'll make a motion, we move the meeting time to 1:30 in the afternoon.
Third Wednesday,
Yeah.
Third Wednesday, 1:30?
does that work for you, Mr. Smith? Is that a conflict for you?
Third Wednesdays are for this board, and that's fine with me.
Fantastic.
Does that even need to be a motion, or just a?
Yes, please.
Well, I have a motion then from John. Third Wednesday of the month at 1:30 PM. Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is.
Okay.
All right.
This house, we're getting close.
Are we bringing up things that we just want to talk about?
No, we cannot, because this is a special call meeting.
Okay, never mind.
Now, that's every month, Joni.
Yes, sir. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to meet every month. If we don't have anything to do, I'll call it. I try to call it several days beforehand, but if you would put that third Wednesday of each month on your calendar.
And I think some of what we were doing also was delaying a little bit until we got switched over to planning and zoning too. So there was about a 6-month time in there, things got a little fractious, but we're back on track now.
Talk about the preservation award.
Okay, well, I included in your packet, Mr. Bauer's, notes, and I think that we have, we've kind of batted this around. I've visited many of the websites that Lynn sent me to and looked on my own, and given some of the discussions that we had, the last couple times we've met, I think that the desire there is to be more inclusive as opposed to just singling out one particular project. Because I agree, it is hard to single out a project when you have a multi-million-dollar company as opposed to a house owner who's putting in windows. So I kind of looked around, and there is that maybe top 5 list of projects per year that might be a more inclusive procedure than picking one. Now, what our criteria is, I think Mr. Bowers laid that out quite well for this award. So that's kind of my guidance on it, along with his notes. I'm kind of stuck on it because we can craft this any way we want, but if we really want it to be more inclusive, I think maybe a top 5 list of preservation projects. And then we've got to decide, is this going to just be within the district, which is going to be pretty hard maybe to come up with 5 projects? We don't want to have somebody sign in their yard as being part of it. Perhaps we should put that to the whole county, now that we're part of the county board. So that is my opinion. I think a list would better serve our needs than just saying this is the best project in the county this year. And then, so I will open the discussion to see how you all want to proceed.
I would say a top 5 is a good idea because it accomplishes exactly what we discussed last time of being more inclusive, bringing in projects that aren't necessarily $1 million, because who cares? I have a question about, we're using preservation, kicking that word around, we're kicking around historical. Could you define historical?
So I would default to the national parks when they define a historic building that would need to be at least 50 years old and be eligible for inclusion on the National Register. That would be my definition of a historic building within 50. It has to be 50 years old and should be eligible for inclusion in the National Register. That would be my default, Gary, on how I would define that. Now, preservation is a really broad topic, and I'm not sure that rehabilitation would not be a better terminology than preservation. So when you look at the National Park Service, they kind of break it down. Preservation is just really keeping what you have there, which most folks that work on their building or their house, they're not really interested in just keeping what's there. They're trying to rehabilitate that to a modern use. So you have those standards with rehabilitation. So I would almost default more to the rehabilitation than preservation. Does that make sense to you?
It does. I think I understand what that means.
Okay.
I don't know what preservation means, because what are we preserving, you know? I guess.
Correct. And then you have different levels. If you had someone say they wanted to restore Jacobs Hall to its 1860s appearance, that is an entirely different conversation that you have. But most of what we deal with within this community is rehabilitation, which means that they're bringing a historic building and rehabilitating it for a modern use. So to me, we're more in the business of doing guidelines for rehabilitation than preservation.
Yeah.
Does that
Yes.
kind of make more sense? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
That answers that.
Well, when I was going through some of the websites, that word preservation, rehabilitation is confusing. And just to bring out one sentence, it would say rehabilitation or restoration that preserves architectural or cultural history. So it's a confusing term. And when you think preservation, it's almost, we have to stop it in time, you know, it's a fly in the amber kind of thing, where rehabilitation, I think, is more inclusive.
Yeah.
So you spotted the discrepancy.
More projects will qualify under that definition. That should be what our objective is.
That is correct. The only, you know, as I've looked through the country, the only real preservation project I've seen in the last 25 years was Drayton Hall down in South Carolina, and they just froze it in time. And I mean, even as far as the wallpaper that was coming off, they froze it in time. That is a true preservation project. They're preserving what they have there. 99.9% of everything this board deals with is rehabilitation for those historic structures. And I also think Lynn made a really, because we were batting around the criteria for this list or award. I think he's hit it pretty well that we link the DHBR already existing criteria as the criteria for the award, and he's listed that out there. So I think that criteria would work very well for that. But we do need to probably clarify, if we call it a preservation award, I mean, preservation to the public means not necessarily what it means to you all because you're dealing with it very intimately. So they would understand it more than dealing with the nuances between wording that the National Park Service loves to put out there. So I would try to include preservation in the name of the award just because of the understanding that the public has of it. But as we look at it, we would probably have a better understanding of what that really means. Does that make sense to you?
Well, you're kind of walking the fence and falling over on one side, I think.
Right, right. We are. It's just, if we're going to present this to the public, when you start talking about rehabilitation versus preservation versus restoration, they're not immersed in national park standards and things of that nature. Right. So that, and call it what you want, guys. I'm just saying to you that I think the public understands it as preservation in a much more broad sense than we want to deal with it that way.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get off that fence.
All right.
Is this the naming of the award that we're talking about, that we're digging into?
Yeah.
We could just call it the Architectural Heritage Board Award.
Well, there you go.
Humble suggestion.
Humble suggestion.
Well done. I think our attorney belongs on the board.
Ah,
Like that.
so the Architectural Heritage Board Award?
Well, and I think within the award certificate, or however we do it, that's where you can sort of come into detail and explain the award has been given for.
Certainly.
And, you know, let the owner and the public know, okay, what's this award about? Good. Good suggestion.
Are you comfortable with the criteria that was laid out in the proposal?
It works for me.
Has everybody had a chance to kind of look at that and? Okay. I will then take that and try to come up with some sort of form for folks to fill out if they want to submit a project for that, given that criteria. And I will get that to you all for review before we meet again, because I feel like if we're going to get this moving, we need to roll with it.
Okay.
So I would say, let me get some sort of application process together. I will send it out to you guys to review, and then we can make comment and fine tune that thing for the next time we meet. Because honestly, I would like to announce it in January, if possible. And then ultimately, we want to come up with the list by May, which is Preservation Month, so that we can make that part of what we do to acknowledge Preservation Month. That sounds like a plan.
Tom, you bring up a good question, because I'm even confused. The criteria I listed was the review criteria of the board, which is technical in nature. Are we talking about the criteria or the categories that we're thinking about, which is, I just listed brick and mortar awards, and we're looking at residential, commercial, retail, institutional landscaping. And then we talked about educational, where we search out individuals and groups. So when we're talking about criteria,
Well, I'm specifically talking about bricks and mortar, the criteria for bricks and mortar, when we consider a building. I don't know, Lynn, how easy it's going to be to award, like the Boy Scouts with the Architectural Heritage Board Award. I understand what we're trying to do is expand the education, but we have a very limited ability to do that. What would we, I mean, would they take on a project? How would we go about that?
well, I would think so. I mean, it's just recognizing that there might be individuals or groups out there that are doing quote-unquote preservation work that might not just be brick and mortar, that could be valuable. And you could use the same review criteria to say, this individual has worked on a project with a youth group that identified a particular building. The group researched the history, went through, identified, made some recommendations. That's what I was thinking about. It's not, you know, it's opening up our exposure, and again, recognizing that there is some good work going out there that may not just be brick and mortar.
I think I know where you're headed, what you're thinking about, and I agree with it. It seems to me, once you get your format down for the brick and mortar, I think in that same vein, any year we want, we could have like a special recognition award or something like that for somebody that, you know, makes a significant contribution to our heritage. And just, it could be very generic. It doesn't have to happen, but if the Boy Scouts step up, we can recognize them.
Well, certainly. I mean, I think when we look at the top 5 list of preservation projects, because we are a brick and mortar board, that's what our charge is to deal with the built environment. So perhaps the list could be the projects of the built environment with a special recognition of a group. Does that kind of track what you guys are thinking? I mean, that's fairly easy to do.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that our guiding principles are architectural heritage and the bricks and mortar. So and that's my main emphasis, you all. I'm all for the special recognition, but I'll have to give that some thought of what that criteria would be. We do have Bull Landmark Trust that also does that as well. And it might well do us to partner with them perhaps in some form to do that.
What was the group again?
The Boyle Landmark Trust.
Oh.
Jonathan, are you on, you are on the Boyle Landmark Trust?
Yeah, so I'm on the board, and every year, although they have been dormant for some years, but they are active again, they give, is it the Barbara Hewlett Award? Is that the name of it?
I think there were 3. I won one year.
Yeah. I don't remember the other 2.
I know one is for tradesmen,
Yeah.
for a tradesman that has done outstanding work in the trade.
Yes.
There's a Pure Preservation Award, and then there's one other, I think, that's focuses on a group maybe.
The community member group who aids in the documenting, the preservation and things of history. I think Michael Hughes got that last year from the African American Historical Society. They do that. I have brought up to them at board meetings about collaborating with the AHB. There does not seem to be a lot of interest in doing that. I'm not sure why. Maybe they just have too many irons in the fire right now because they are trying to. So for context, that board has kind of collapsed many times over time, and filings and things on the state level to continue to be a nonprofit have lapsed at times as well. So, now they are coming back, getting their papers filed and things. That board has existed in some way since the 70s, but they don't have a paper trail of their existence. So they're trying to collect all of that right now and to get some kind of home base. There's been talk about buying a historic property and something, right? And so I think their capacity right now, maybe they're not up for collaboration. I think they kind of will need to be sold on the idea. I don't see why, but, they've got a lot of stuff going on now. And, it's all volunteer led, so it's kind of hard to convince folks, to spend some extra time to do something. Although we're all trying to move towards the same goal, so why not? So I've been trying to lean on them some to get them to be someone to come here and we can meet something at some point. The interest is low at this time, but I would like to see that connection made.
Will a support letter from this organization help you with that?
It could. We're gonna meet soon. Next November, it's the second Thursday in November. Let me go and talk to them this next meeting. Test the waters again. And then we meet the next week, probably. And then I will find out if we need to send a letter or not. The last time that I brought this up to them was some months back when we talked about this in May or June or something of this past year. And they were, at that time, attempting to purchase the Gore House on the Danville High School campus for restoration, and that fell through. So there was a lot of activity at that moment. I don't think they had the extra time to collaborate on anything. Right now, they don't have anything like that since that did not happen. So they might be interested now. So let me meet with them.
Okay.
If I think we need a simple letter, I'll let you know, and we can do that.
Right, and you might tell them, and this is something certainly, Lynn, we can do on our own. We can have that special recognition, but it might be nice to have that partnership with another collaboration. I will take my direction in working on the criteria for the bricks and mortar list. I will try to come up with some idea of how to get a special recognition worked into there. I'll look at what other boards do and see how that works. My bailiwick is bricks and mortar, so I'll get that out to you sooner than later, and then throw out some ideas about how to weave in the special recognition, and I'll have to do a little research on that. But I understand we want to get that, we want to expose ourselves more. So, and then that's something as we work on the website too, which I have not forgotten, but we're getting, the young lady's just now getting back off maternity leave, so we will get that rolling. Does that sound good, guys? Because I do think we need to get this thing hammered in by January to get it out into the papers that we're looking for the submission of projects.
Mayor?
Where are we on the General Bragg's house and the springs in Perryville? Did anybody
We sent the letter.
to the doctor who owns the property?
Yes, sir.
Did we get a response from him?
No, sir. Not that I know.
Have you been there lately?
I have been. I was just there 2 days ago. It looks fantastic.
Want to tell the committee what's going on there?
I don't know how much money that man has spent on that place, but considerable. This is a Crawford House in Perryville. They have tuck pointed all the mortar. They've tore the back part of that house, which is probably post-Civil War. It was pretty much it was in terrible shape. So they've taken that completely down. They've restored that with what looks like durable concrete board siding. They are working on the restoration of the windows right now. I was over there the other day, and they're restoring those windows, which are just fantastic. Mr. Steinbach's doing a great job with it. Of course, he is under guidelines from the Kentucky Heritage Council. Everything he does on that has to go through the approval of the Heritage Council, so he's going to make sure that it's done per their requirements. So he saved the house, I'm telling you. He saved that house.
And then the state cleaned up the springs, the area behind the house.
Did they?
You seen that?
No.
That's completely cleaned up,
Oh, good.
where you can get down into the springs. That's really what the battle was all about, the water rights out there behind the house. So the tourism board allocated $25,000 for the cleanup of that area. And then the state was contacted, the Department of Parks, and the commissioner directed somebody to clean it all up, which they did.
I have not been back there. I'll have to go and look.
You can drive back there, and, I mean, it's really neat. And, I think personally, it's a historic place. It would draw people to this county, which in turn, you know what happens then, they spend money elsewhere. And we're on record of supporting that whole project, aren't we?
Oh, yes, we are. Yes, sir. He got the letter. I don't know what his final intention with that structure is going to be. I don't know if he's going to run an Airbnb. I don't know what he's going to do with it, but
Well, the state has promised not to make it a stepchild of the state, so.
good. That's a good thing.
I mean, I don't know.
Well, that property there is very difficult to deal with because of the way it was purchased through water. It was a water grant, and that, I was heavily involved with that for a long time. So I think it's better off in private hands. And now, I haven't been back down to the springs. I just haven't got out of the car and walked down there, but I will now that you've told me that.
The state wants to give it to the county. Now, I don't know where the county is on that. So I've asked, but I've not heard anything yet.
I don't know. I know that the Crawford House is looking fantastic, so, and we've sent him the letter. We sent that some months ago, so I got you taken care of there.
Okay.
Okay.
This is a special call meeting, nothing else on the agenda. We probably varied from that just a little, but not terribly. Motion to adjourn?
I'll move we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
I have a second.